So here we are, south of Cleveland in Parma, Ohio. I'm with Fred Bess, and Fred, this is your oldest Torreya. Tell us a little bit about why its growth form is like this, when you got it, when you planted it, what your experience with it has been.
This Torreya is the first that I received. I got this on eBay 2006 or maybe 7. I don't remember the year and can't locate the tag. This was a cutting grown plant that came to me from someone in Alabama. I tried to get more information but was unable to contact her. Because it's a cutting grown plant, it has the growth habit more of a bush. Unlike seed grown plants, it will not resprout from the base. And this has survived intact since that first year without any damage, including 3 nights the winter of 2013-14 at minus 17 degrees Fahrenheit. No damage at all. This Torreya was part of a group of 4 that I got from woodlanders. I actually drove down there and picked them up since they wouldn't ship out of state, which is understandable. This plant, being here in the woods as opposed to the other 3 out in the sun, has had an entirely different growth cycle. This one did pretty well through last winter. However, the cage that's surrounding it to protect it from the deer was knocked off, and the bucks rubbed it basically to the ground. This spring, it put on about 6 inches of new growth from the base, which is one of the pluses of the seed-grown plants. They will resprout from the base. Here in this woods, we suspect it was clear-cut in the late 60s, and everything that's grown in since is primarily red maple, a few black cherry. The canopy is pretty dense, which is why the growth of this Torreya has been pretty slim. It does the bulk of its growth early in the spring before the leaves on the trees leaf out. And as you can see from the woods, the deer have basically eaten everything from what they can reach to the ground. I suspect in the near future this plant will have to be moved just because I don't want to have to worry about the deer, which there are 2 of them right behind you, and it's not getting enough sun to grow properly.
Why isn't there anything else growing on this forest floor?
Because the deer just eat everything.
So that's the buck you were talking about.
That's the little buck. There's 2 really big bucks here as well.
And you say there's a couple does to the left of this?
Yeah, they're over there.
Yeah, I can't see them. Wow. It's a lot for a tree to have to cope with.
These are part of the same group from woodlanders. Last winter, all 3 of these plants had severe wind burn, winter damage. All recovered really phenomenally. I have noticed with all of these plants that they tend to put on a flush of growth in the spring and then a smaller flush late in the summer. This is the second of the group. You can see in some spots here where there was the windburn winter injury. I did clean most of that out, and again, the plants flushed out really nicely this season. This is the third one in the group. You can see really well here at the top the late fall or early fall flush of growth after the spring growth, which was this 6 or so inches here. This particular one was damaged last fall by bucks rubbing on the stem, and here in the next week or 2 I'm going to be wrapping all of these to prevent deer damage this summer or this fall. This needle palm has been in here for 4 years, survived all of the winters, including the brutal one we just had, with very little damage. It is native to the southeastern United States. In fact, it grows in the same region as the Torreya taxifolia does in the wild. Down in here we also have palmetto, the saw palmetto, sabal minor. It's also native to the same region. It does not take the winters here very well, and it's generally, even with a blanket of protection, gets killed back to the ground, but it rebounds every year. This is Cephalotaxis harringtonia. This is the vestigiate form. It was killed pretty sharply to the ground, but it's recovering. I did have several plants that were badly damaged this winter that were rated zone 5 and 6, this area, whereas Torreya taxifolia is rated zone 7 and higher, and surprisingly it had virtually no damage. Personally, that's why I don't really care for zone ratings on plants, because unless you experiment, you never know. This is Cunninghamia lanceolata glauca, the blue form, which is supposed to be the hardiest cultivar. This came to me in 2006 as a 2-foot plant. So in basically 8 years it grew this big. In this past winter it was killed to the ground. It's rated zone 6. And here we're on the kind of the cusp of zone 5 and zone 6. The Torreya suffered only minor windburn, needle damage. The stems were not damaged at all, which tells me that Torreya is a northern tree caught in a protected zone in the south.
Well, you're our northernmost person in Torreya Guardians that actually has above ground Torreyas. We've got a number of seeds that have recently been planted. And so the fact that you've discovered that in this really cold past winter we had in 2014, that Torreya did okay, that's really significant to know. Talk with us about how bad the conditions were this winter.
This is the coldest winter we've had since 1992, I believe. In addition to the polar vortex, I recorded on my back deck 3 nights at minus 17 degrees and a number of other nights that were well below zero. The Torreyas are out in well exposed on a hillside where they're subject to windburn, they're subject to salt mist, and they did have damage, but it was nothing more than needle damage, and none of the stems were significantly damaged. And again, that tells me that Torreya belongs in the north. It does not belong in Florida.